It's snowing outside this box, and inside, the lettuce is growing. It's called a cold frame. It costs about $25 in materials, and it turns winter into a growing season. Here is the build and the 5 crops that thrive in it. Most people look at their garden in November and accept that it's over. They wait 6 months for a tomato, spending money on lettuce shipped from 1,500 miles away. They don't know about the box. A simple wood frame, a transparent lid, and a south-facing spot. That's the entire system. And the 5 crops I am about to name will keep you harvesting until the ground thaws again. Here is what nobody tells you about winter. The ground doesn't actually freeze solid the day the calendar flips to November. In most of the country, you've got weeks, sometimes months, where the soil is still workable, still alive, just waiting for a cover. That's where the box comes in. A cold frame is essentially a mini greenhouse, a bottomless wooden frame with a slanted transparent lid. On a day when the outside temperature barely cracks freezing, the air inside can reach 45 or 50 degrees, a full 10 to 15 degrees warmer, just from sunlight trapped beneath glass or plastic. The first person who showed me this wasn't a scientist or a homesteader with a YouTube channel. It was my neighbor, a 70-year-old woman who had been pulling fresh lettuce out of her garden in January since the Nixon administration. She called it her salad bank. She'd built it from 2 old window sashes and some scrap lumber she found at a construction site. Total cost, $11. And that was in 1992. The same design today, with materials from any hardware store, still runs you about $25. The point is, this isn't new technology. Thomas Jefferson grew lettuces through the winter at Monticello, in glass-covered hotbeds heated by fermenting manure. The Parisian market gardeners in the 1800s used thousands of bell jars called cloches to keep feeding the city while snow piled up on the streets. Farmers all across Europe and America used to depend on structures like these, not as a hobby, but as a survival tool. So what happened? Why did every suburban backyard in America forget that you can pick salad greens on Christmas morning? Because about 60 years ago, a different system took over. Supermarkets, refrigerated trucks, lettuce shipped year-round from California and Arizona, bred not for flavor or nutrient density, but for shelf life and uniform shape. The knowledge of how to grow your own winter food was replaced by the convenience of a $3 bag of romaine hearts, picked 10 days ago and driven 2,000 miles in a diesel truck. And here is where the stakes get real. That bag of romaine you buy in December loses up to 50% of its vitamin C within a week of harvest. The spinach, sitting on the shelf, has less iron than it did when it left the field. Meanwhile, a leaf of lettuce cut from a cold frame and eaten 5 minutes later contains every nutrient it was supposed to deliver. And because cold-hardy crops like spinach and carrots experience a light frost, their starches convert to sugars. They literally get sweeter in the cold, a flavor profile you cannot replicate in a climate-controlled shipping container. But there is one thing that kills a cold frame faster than a hard freeze. One mistake that turns your miniature greenhouse into a frozen coffin for your plants. And I almost made it the very first time I built one. Stay with me, because when I show you the exact build and the 5 crops that refuse to die in the snow, you need to know the rule that makes all of it possible. The mistake is this: you build the box, you set it over your plants, you see frost on the outside of the lid, and you think everything is working perfectly. Then a sunny day shows up. Not warm, maybe 38 degrees outside, but inside that sealed box, The temperature climbs to 70 in under an hour. Your lettuce starts photosynthesizing like it's April. It puts on soft, lush growth, the kind of tissue that has no cold tolerance. Then the sun drops. The temperature crashes back to 25 by midnight, and every leaf you grew that afternoon freezes solid, turns to mush, and collapses by morning. I lost an entire crop of spinach this way the first winter. Not to the cold, but to a 70-degree afternoon in February that I never saw coming. The rule is ventilation. You open the lid any day the outside temperature climbs above 40 degrees, even just a crack, even for an hour. If you don't, the box becomes an oven, and the cold snap that follows becomes a blade. Now, the build. You need 4 things: a wooden frame, a transparent lid, hinges, and a south-facing spot. The frame is just a box without a bottom. 2x6 lumber is perfect, cut to whatever size fits your garden bed. The back wall should be twice as tall as the front, so the lid slopes toward the sun. For a standard 4-foot by 4-foot frame, that means a 12-inch back wall and a 6-inch front wall. The lid can be an old storm window, a sheet of twin-wall polycarbonate, or a piece of clear plastic stapled tight over a lightweight frame. You attach it with hinges along the back, so you can prop it open with a stick. That's it. No heater, no fan, no electricity. Just a box that captures photons and holds them hostage overnight. My neighbor used discarded window sashes from a house remodeled down the street. Total cost: $0 for the glass, $8 for a box of screws, and 2 hinges. If you buy everything new, lumber, polycarbonate, hardware, you'll hit about $25. That is the price of 2 bags of grocery store salad mix that will wilt in your fridge in 4 days. This box will feed you for 3 months. Now the crops, 5 of them. Number 1, lettuce, specifically leaf lettuce, like black-seeded Simpson or winter density. It germinates in soil as cool as 40 degrees, grows through short days, and can be harvested as baby greens or left to mature under a cold frame. You'll cut fresh leaves from November to March. Number 2, spinach, gigante d'inverno or Bloomsdale. Spinach doesn't just survive the cold, it transforms. When the temperature dips below freezing, the plant converts stored starches into sugars as a natural antifreeze. The result is a leaf that tastes sweeter in January than anything you've ever bought in July. Number 3, kale, red Russian or lacinato. It handles single-digit nights without complaint and puts on new growth every time the sun warms the box above 45 degrees. Number 4, radishes, French breakfast or cherry bell. They mature in 30 days, even in low light. Plant them in October. Harvest by Thanksgiving. Plant again. Harvest for Christmas. They're the fastest return in the whole system. Number 5, carrots, Napoli ornantis. They sit in the ground all winter, getting progressively sweeter with every frost. You pull them when you need them. The soil inside the frame rarely freezes past the top inch because the lid traps enough heat during the day to keep the earth alive. But here is what changes everything you thought you knew about winter growing. Every one of these crops improves in flavor when exposed to a light freeze, not despite the cold, but because of it. The sugar thing with spinach and carrots, that's real. The frost triggers the plant to protect its cell walls from ice crystals by producing more sugars. It's a survival mechanism, and when you eat that leaf, you taste the result, a sweetness that can't exist in a California field where the temperature never dips below 50 degrees. The same lettuce you buy at the store in December is bland and watery because it was grown in a heat-stressed valley under drip irrigation. The lettuce in your cold frame is denser, nuttier, and full of flavor compounds that commercial agriculture can't replicate. Winter is not the enemy. Winter is the ingredient, and the seed companies have quietly bred varieties specifically for this. Cold hardy types that the supermarket industry ignores because they can't handle a cross-country truck ride. But there is one thing that can still take down your entire cold frame, even if you vent perfectly, even if you plant the right varieties, even if you follow every rule I just gave you. It's not a pest, it's not a disease, and most people don't discover it until they lift the lid one morning and find everything dead. I'll tell you what it is and how to stop it right after this. The thing that kills your cold frame is not the air temperature, it's the soil, specifically the soil freezing solid from the bottom up. Most people build a frame, set it on the ground, plant their seeds, and assume the lid will keep everything warm, and it does for the leaves. But the roots sit in soil that's in direct contact with frozen ground outside the frame. A week of single-digit nights, and the cold creeps in from the sides and underneath, turning the soil inside your box into a block of ice that no amount of afternoon sun can thaw. You lift the lid. The greens look fine, but when you touch them, they're limp, not wilted from heat, but frozen at the root crown. The cells have burst. There's no saving them. The fix is so simple that most books skip over it. Sink the frame. Dig a trench 4 inches deep where the frame will sit. Set the box into the ground so the soil inside is below the frost line. That 4 inches of earth around the perimeter acts like a blanket pulling geothermal warmth upward, the same principle that keeps a basement 55 degrees in a blizzard. Then pile straw bales around the outside walls. It's not decorative, it's insulation. The combination of sunken walls and straw can keep the soil inside the frame above freezing, even when the air outside hits zero. Now, there's a second layer to this that turns a cold frame from a survival box into a production machine. Thermal mass. Anything dense and dark that absorbs heat during the day and releases it slowly at night. A gallon jug of water painted black and placed against the back wall will soak up solar energy for 6 hours and radiate it until dawn. 4 of them. You've got a passive battery system. Some old-timers fill milk jugs with water, paint them flat black, and lined the north side of the frame. Total cost: nothing. The difference is 5 to 8 degrees on a bitter night. The difference between alive and dead. But I need to tell you why this matters beyond your salad bowl. Because there's a number that the grocery industry doesn't want you to calculate. The average head of lettuce in an American supermarket in winter travels 1,800 miles from field to shelf. It sits in a refrigerated truck for up to a week, losing 30% of its folate and half its vitamin C before you even touch it. Meanwhile, the cold frame lettuce in your backyard goes from living plant to your plate in 90 seconds. No fuel burned, no plastic clamshell, no supply chain that snaps when a highway closes in a snowstorm. In 2022, a lettuce shortage hit the eastern seaboard because a virus wiped out fields in California. Store shelves went bare, prices tripled, and everyone with a $25 box of leaves in their yard ate salad through the whole thing. The Amish in Lancaster County never stopped doing this. When grocery stores arrived with their year-round California lettuce, the Amish didn't abandon their cold frames. They looked at the price tag, looked at their own backyards, and kept building boxes. Not because they're opposed to technology, but because they understand something we forgot. Food that travels a few steps from garden to table is more reliable than food that crosses the country in a diesel truck. And in a winter, when the trucks can't get through, when the grid flickers, when the store shelves are empty, a cold frame isn't a gardening project. It's food security. Now, before I show you the fifth crop, the one that changes the entire game, a plant so cold hardy, it actually improves with every freeze, that seeds itself, that tastes like butter and nuts, and will feed you in February without any heat at all. I need to show you the one adjustment to your build that costs nothing and doubles your yield, something my neighbor whispered to me after I'd already built 3 frames and thought I knew everything. The fifth crop, the whisper crop, is called mâche, also known as corn salad or lamb's lettuce. It's not flashy. It doesn't get the same attention as kale or spinach, but mâche does something no other winter crop can match. It survives unprotected down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit, inside a cold frame. It never stops growing, not even in the darkest weeks of January. The leaves are small, spoon-shaped, with a buttery, nutty flavor that intensifies with each frost. And here's the part that turns it from a crop into a permanent guest. It self-seeds. Plant it once in September, harvest all winter. Let a few plants bolt in early spring, and you will never have to plant it again. It just returns, every autumn, in the same spot you first sowed it, like a stray cat that pays for its keep in salad. My neighbor, the woman with the $11 frame, watched me build 3 boxes over 3 years before she decided to speak. She told me every cold frame has a weak point, and it's not the wood or the glass. It's the seam where the lid rests. Even a 1/4-inch gap lets a continuous stream of warm air escape all night. A single gap can pull the internal temperature down by 8 degrees. Her fix was a strip of wool blanket, cut into ribbons and stapled along the top edge. When the lid closes, the wool compresses and seals the gap. It's a thermal gasket, and it costs nothing because you almost certainly have an old blanket somewhere that you're never going to use again. I went home that afternoon, cut a strip from a moving blanket in the garage, and the next morning the inside of my frame was 4 degrees warmer than the day before. No change to the lid, no extra jugs of water, just wool. I had wasted 3 winters leaving that gap open. Combined that with sinking the box 4 inches, stacking straw bales around it, tucking black water jugs against the back, and propping the lid open on warm days. Then plant lettuce, spinach, kale, radishes, carrots, and a patch of mâche. You have a living refrigerator that needs no electricity, no trucking, and no supply chain. The lettuce is sweeter than anything in a plastic box. The radishes have a snap that fades hours after harvest. And the act of brushing snow off a lid on a January morning, pulling your own greens for breakfast, there's no price tag on that. That's not gardening. That's quietly opting out of a system that convinced you fresh food stops in October. Now, if you've got an old window in your garage or leaning against the shed, you already own the expensive part of the system. The rest is lumber and an hour. Do it before the ground freezes, and you'll eat from your own yard on Christmas Day. And if you're thinking this is the limit of what winter can give you, I'll show you next something even simpler. A method that requires no frame at all, just seeds and snow. So, here's what I want to know. If you had a box in your backyard right now, sitting in the snow with fresh greens inside, what would you plant first? Lettuce? Spinach? That mâche that seeds itself and never leaves? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and your answers decide what we cover next. Hit subscribe. Not for me, but because in the next video, I am going to show you that method I mentioned. No frame, no lumber, no glass. Just a common item you throw away every week. A little soil and snow, and it will change the way you think about winter forever. If any of this made sense to you, if the idea of picking your own salad in January feels like something worth holding onto, there's a special offer waiting for you through the link in the first pinned comment below. It's my way of saying thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.